So I have shown you how to create multiple objects, and we also loaded tables like customers, orders and sellers. Now let me continue with the remaining part of the CRUD operation, which is read, update and delete. But before that, just a recap. When you talk about CRUD operations, the full form of CRUD is create, read, update and delete. As part of create, we created databases, we created schemas, and then we created tables. But as you know that tables are the only objects which hold the actual data. So the creation was done, then I loaded those tables. But apart from loading, we can use insert statement also. So insert statement is also used to insert data to a particular table or create data for a table. So insert also is part of C operation, which is create. We do not use insert statement using command line or clients like PSQL, because let's say you have to insert 1 million rows, then you'll have to write the insert command 1 million times from the command line. So that's why insert statement is something which is done by application programs like Python, Java, etc. Either using front end or reading from a file and then inserting to a table. Now after insertion is done, then we have reading the table, which is done using select statement. And select is the most important statement because this is the statement that we use the most, be it data engineers, data scientists and data analysts. In fact, data scientists, data analysts and other personas only use select statement. They do not use create, insert, update or delete statement as much. Then we have update to update records in a particular table, and finally we have delete to destroy records from a particular table. So these are the various CRUD operations, and I have already talked about create. Let me start with the insert statement. So as you know that insert is something which is used to get data into tables, but insert is not the only way to get data into tables, because as I said, if you have a billion rows that you have to insert, you cannot do it using the command line. You cannot run the insert statement million times in your laptop. So that has to be done programmatically. There are other ways of getting data into tables also, like load command, which you had used. We load data from S3 file to tables directly. So that is also kind of an insert, but not exactly an insert statement. So load and insert are not same, but to create data, we use load command also. Now let me show you some very simple insert statement. What will I do is I'll use, let's say, the customers table to insert a row. So let me take a look at the structure of the customers table. We have customer ID, address, etc. So let me insert into customer table. So this is the command, insert into customers, and then you'll have to mention values. Now in the values, you'll have to put the values of the column just the way it is. For example, the first value should be for customer ID. The second value should be for address. Third value should be for zip code, something like this. So this is how you insert a select a single column. So imagine if you have to insert multiple columns, you'll have to run this insert statement multiple times. So that's why you do not use insert statement as much from the command line. But the other statement that we use is select, and it is used a lot from the command line. And as you might have already guessed, select statement is used to read records from one or more tables. And we get all the rows or subset of rows from the tables. So let's say we have this orders table, and this is the table: order ID, customer ID, order date, status and price. I have not mentioned all the columns. And we use select statement to read records from this particular table. And either we can get all the rows and all columns, meaning I want to read the entire table, and we do that using this statement, select star from the table name, or we can get a subset of columns and subset of rows. For example, let's say I want only order ID and order date. So you can mention select order ID, order date from orders. Now using this select statement, I am retrieving only subset of columns, but all the rows are getting retrieved. But if we want, we can get a subset of rows also using something called a where clause. And this is the where clause. And here I am mentioning a condition, and based on the condition, the number of rows would be retrieved. So what I'm saying, I am selecting order ID and order date, which is a subset of the columns that this table has, from orders where order status equal to P, meaning get me the rows where the status is equal to P. It should have been status actually, not order status, but anyway, the status is P. Now, what would happen is if you execute this particular statement, only row number 1 and row number 5 would be retrieved, and only order ID and order date would be retrieved. So only subset of columns and subset of rows are getting retrieved. Now let's say if we want all the columns but only subset of rows, we could have mentioned select star from orders where status equal to P. So in that case, we would have got all the columns but only the row number 1 and row number 5. So this is how we can get subset of columns and rows. We can also limit the number of output rows using something called a limit clause. So let's say I have 100 rows and I do not want to see 100 rows. I want to see only the 10 rows. So I can mention limit 10. In that case, I will see only 10 rows. Then we can sort based on a particular column also. So let's say I want to sort the output based on order date. So starting from the latest order date to the oldest order date. So we can mention again the same column, order by order date. By default it is ascending, meaning it will show you from oldest date to recent date. You can mention order by order date DESC, which means descending. In that case, we'll get the rows in descending order of order date because we have mentioned order date in the order by clause. Then you have group also. We can group based on a certain column, and group is typically used for aggregation. So let's say I want to find out all the products sold for a particular product code because I want to find out which product is sold the most based on price. So let's say I have a different table, and or for that matter I have a product code in order table, and what it would do is that for every unique product code it will sum all the price. So let's say in this case the first 3 rows belong to product code iPhone, and the second 2 rows, the last 2 rows belong to product ID Samsung. Now if I run this particular statement, select sum price from orders, group by product code, because the first 3 rows belong to product code iPhone, what this statement would do, it would add price, these 3 price 25.50, 83.15 and 18.61, and then shows the output for iPhone, and then it would add the price for Samsung also. So this is how group by works. So basically I want certain aggregation function based on a particular group. So in this case the group is product code. And let's go ahead and look at some hands-on of these statements. Now before that, so let's look at the orders table, and this is the structure of the orders table. We have order ID, customer ID, seller ID, order date, delivery date, etc. So first what will I do is I will select all the rows and all the columns from orders table. Now remember that I have only 100 rows in this table, so that's why it is fine. But if you have millions of rows, then you should not retrieve all the rows and all the columns. So as you can see, it starts from order ID 1 and then order ID till order ID 100. If you do a select star, it will stop at certain rows in the first screen. Then you can press space bar, I'll take you to the next screen. And these are all the orders that I have in the orders table. Now, I do not want to see all the columns. I want to see the order ID, the order date, the delivery date, and the price of order. That's what I want to see. So what will I do? I'll select, let me clear the screen first. So select order ID, then order date, then delivery date and price, but I want to select all the rows from orders. So in this case, what am I doing? I am selecting only a subset of columns, not all the columns, but I'm selecting all the rows. So again, I'll be able to see all the 100 rows, but only for these 4 columns: order ID, order date, delivery date and price. And if I press spacebar, as you can see, it is showing me all the 100 rows. Now let's say I want to see the only first 10 rows. I can mention limit 10. So in this case, only the first 10 rows would be shown. So this is how we can limit the output also. Now let us go ahead and select a subset of the rows. I want to select all the columns, but only for payment method Visa. So how do I do that? Select star from orders, and I'll have to add something called a where clause. So where you'll have to mention payment method. Now as the data type is string, you'll have to put single quote and then the value that you want to select it for. So now it will show me all the rows where the payment method is Visa. So now if I press enter, there are only 20 rows it seems, and as you can see, the payment method is Visa. Right, so let us go ahead and select a few other subset of rows. I have shown you how to select or how to mention where clause using a string. Let us go ahead and find the row where customer ID is equal to, let's say, 10,000. Now customer ID, if you remember, it is integer. So I'll have to mention where customer ID, and I'll not mention any quotes here because this is integer. And as you can see, we have 11 rows. So the customer ID 10,000 has ordered 11 times. So I can see all the rows for this customer ID. So this is how we select subset of rows where the data type is integer. Now it would be true for order ID, customer ID, seller ID, and quantity also. Now let's go ahead and select for order date. So let me select this order date. I'll select all the rows where order date is equal to 2024, 09 and 21. Now this is a date data type. So what you have to do, you'll have to put it in quotes, and you'll have to mention it like first year, then month, and then the date. So it is showing us two rows. So meaning that there are two orders which were made on 21st September of 2024. Similarly, let us go ahead and look at quantity. Now what will I do? I'll change the where clause a little bit. So far I have been using only equal condition. Let me change and make it or use greater than condition. So let's say where quantity is greater than 6. So what will happen? It will show us all the rows where quantity is equal to 7 or 8 or 9 and or 10 also. So there are a lot of rows, it seems 40 rows are there where the quantity is greater than 6, or let's see how many rows are there for quantity greater than 8. So it seems like there are 25 rows. I can also mention less than or less than equal to. So let's say I want to find out all the orders where quantity is less than 3 or less than equal to 3. Again, I'm selecting subset of rows based on this particular column, and I have mentioned less than equal to 3. We can do the same for decimal also. So let's say I want to find out all the orders where price is more than $1,000. So in that case, I'll have to type price and greater than equal to, let's say, $1,000 dot 00, and there are fair amount of rows. 50 rows are there where price is less than or greater than $1,000. Let me try to find out the subset of rows where the price is, let's say, less than $100 or less than equal to $100. So there are no rows, it seems. None of the orders have value less than $100 or even $200. Let's see, 500. So it starts from 500, it seems. So I have mentioned the price to be less than $800 and less than equal to $800, and these are the rows. Now one more subset is like condition. So let's say I do not know what the value of payment method is, but I know it would be, let's say, either American Express or Visa or something like that. So I can use something called a like clause or a like statement, and here I mention wildcard. At the beginning I'm mentioning percentage, and at the end also I'm mentioning percentage. Let's say ISA. So whatever starts with something and in middle if there is ISA, then it would fetch me all those records. So if you see, Visa is getting fetched, and then maybe American, so American Express is getting fetched, but I have mentioned only recon, which is this part, right? So, and like condition holds true only for data types which are of character. For example, char, varchar, text, etc. It does not hold good for date data type or numeric data types. So again, I'm selecting a subset of rows, but I'm using the like clause, starting with this wildcard and ending with the wildcard. So let me change it a little bit, and I'll remove the first wildcard. So I should not see any output because there are no rows where the payment method starts with recon, right? So it has to, what am I saying is it starts with recon, and at the end I do not know what is there. So that's why I have put in wildcard. So it does not work like that because there are no rows that starts with recon. Or maybe let's see if there are rows which ends with recon and starts with something else. Don't think we should be finding any rows, and that is the case. So here what am I saying? I'm saying that, see, I do not know what the word starts with, but I know at the end there is recon, which is not the case. So I can mention express because there's a word, or there are rows which words with American Express. So that's why at the beginning I do not know what is it, but I know that it ends with express, it ends with press. So that's why all the rows have been selected. So this is how like condition, where condition works. And now what will I do is that let me use the order by. So as you can see here, the results are not ordered by order date. So I want to find out the rows where the payment method is American Express, and I want to find out based on the latest order date. So what will I do? I'll mention order by clause, and I'll use the order date here, and it starts with 17 to 2024. So by default, as I said, it is in ascending order. If I want, I can mention or fetch the record using descending order also. So now it is the latest order, which is 14th December 2025. And I can also mention the output rows. I can mention limit here, let's say limit 6. It will show me only the top 6 rows based on the sorted value of order date only. Now I can mention multiple sorting columns also. For example, let's say what would happen if the order date is similar. So in this case, if you see, I have this order date 15th October 2025 twice, and how the sorting would be, which one do I want to see first. So in that case, I can mix and match. So let's say order by order date descending, but I want the second order to be price, and that should be in ascending order. So first it will show me the output in descending order of order date, but if there's a match here, which is this one, as you can see, it has sorted based on the ascending order of price. There are no other rows, it seems, which had the same value. So but this is how it works. So we can have, so there's one more, 17th February 2024. It is also in ascending order of price, so from lower to higher. So this is how ordering works. Then you have group by also. So what group by does, let's say I want to find out which card is used the most to do the ordering. So how do we find that out? This is a business statement, right? Which card is used the most? So I know that the card is found in the payment method column. And how do you know that which card is used the most? Whatever the total price for a particular card is higher, that card is used the most. So we have some aggregation here, but the aggregation has to be done on the group of payment method. So I can do something like this, select payment method, and then this aggregation, which is sum price, and then let's say I am renaming it as expense in the output from orders. And here I'll have to mention group by. So let's first execute this. It will give me error saying that column orders dot payment method must appear in the group by clause because I'm using an aggregate function which is sum. I'll talk about aggregate function later on, but we'll have to use the group by here. So let me add group by payment method. So now here's the output. So there are 5 payment methods: Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Chase, etc. Now the number of cards are very less because we have only 100 rows. Now let's say we want to find out the top 3 payment methods or cards that is used out of, let's say, millions of rows, tens of millions of rows. So how do you find that out? Now you know that I have this output column named as expense. I can order by this output column expense descending because I need to find the top 3, and then limit the output to only 3 rows. So in this case, I can see that this is American Express is the top with 25,000 odd dollars, then MasterCard with 23,000 odd dollars, and then Visa with 21,000 odd dollars. The other cards are not even coming here. Now if I remove the limit, you'll see the other cards, which is Discover and Chase. And again, I mean, in this particular table, there are only 5 methods. Of course, there can be other methods also. So this is how you use group by. And we'll use group by later on also. This is just the introduction.